Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is part 6 of this series of streams in which I am developing this app called Notestrator. It is an app that allows you to draw on top of your screen for things like streams or lectures or presentations. And we are writing this application in Node.js, in JavaScript, using Electron. And what I want to do today is, well, a couple things. First, I want to try to smooth our drawings because as of now, the drawings look kind of square if you move too fast. And I also want to try a different way to manage windows in the app. There is the drawing window and the menu window, and I think there is a better way to handle that. We'll see if that works. And we may work on other things like putting the app in the menu bar. We'll see. Let's start with the drawing engine. So this problem of smoothing the path. Let me first show what I mean by a path that is not smooth. So right now, if I draw something very fast, you can see the lines that compose the shape. And the reason why you can see the lines is that the way we are doing the drawing is when you put your cursor down, or alternatively, when you touch your tablet with the pen, we receive that on mouse down event, and we start collecting on mouse move events, and then we draw lines between each one of the places where the mouse move event was fired. And if you are doing this slowly enough, if you're very careful about your drawing, then that's kind of okay. It looks a little jagged, but it doesn't look square. But if you're doing it fast, then the mouse move events don't fire often enough for you to end up with a smooth path. And I believe there are multiple solutions to this problem. In fact, I was doing some research. I was talking about Notestrator with a coworker this weekend, and he mentioned a library that he used for, it's a drawing engine that he used for one of his projects. And one of the reasons, so this library is called PaperJS. So it's this library here. And I was looking at how PaperJS works. Of course, I could just use PaperJS or something equivalent to it. Of course, that would just work. But I thought it would be fun to do the drawing engine from scratch for Notestrator, so that's why we are here. So I was looking at the documentation for PaperJS, and I wanted to learn why they don't use SVGs as their rendering mechanism and also for storage, because they use an HTML5 canvas element to actually display the drawings, and they have import and export functions from and to SVGs. And I was like, why do they do that? Why don't they just use SVGs in the first place? Because PaperJS is advertised as a vector-based drawing engine. So why would they want to use Canvas and have internal data structures? Well, in part, it is because they want to have full control over the data structures. There is a section of the documentation in which they talk about this. They want to have, I don't remember where it is. Maybe tutorials. It was like a frequently asked question thing. Well, definitely not examples. Maybe reference, tutorials, I don't really remember. Oh, here it is. So why not use SVGs? In part, it is because they want to have full control over the graphics, and that's fine. But for our purposes, I think that SVGs are just good enough. SVGs have everything we would need. And the other reason why they don't use SVG in PaperJS is because it was faster to not use SVGs. And I believe that if we were not using SVGs here, we could have something that would be faster, maybe. We would have to test, of course, but the way that this works is on every mouse move when you're drawing a line, we update the DOM to show the line. So we update the SVG to show the line. And updating the DOM is not as fast as updating a canvas element, maybe, probably. I haven't tested, but it seems like that's the test that the people behind PaperJS did, and that's the conclusion they reached. So we know why the thing that we are doing is a bad idea, but I still want to see, and I'm going to keep pushing this idea because I still want to see how far we can go with this. If it turns out that it doesn't really work all that well, then we will use something like PaperJS, or maybe implement just the parts that we need from PaperJS, or Processing.js, or some other library like this. But I want to see how far we can take this idea of using SVGs as the data structure, also as the presentation mechanism, and then when we are drawing, we are just manipulating the SVG. I think that conceptually the model is super clean. I like this architecture. And also I'm curious to see how far we can go, and I want to have the fun of writing some of the algorithms for this to work. Okay, so one of the possibilities would be to use something that is more performant, because I think that there is a bound here on the number of times that mouse move can be called, this event can be triggered, and I think that this limit has to do with the performance of the function itself. So because we are manipulating the DOM, the function cannot be called as often. So that's one issue. We can try to make this function faster. But also, there are other things we can do. So here in this same library, PaperJS, there is this page here. It's one of the tutorials, and it talks about smoothing, simplifying, and flattening. So flattening we don't care about, but let's talk about smoothing and simplifying. They are different ways of performing, of smoothing out a curve, and so they work differently, and I want to give them a try in our app to try to smooth out our drawings. So the first is smoothing itself. So it's called smoothing in PaperJS. So check out the way that this works. What it does is it takes all the lines of a shape, and in this case the shape is closed, but it doesn't really matter. It takes all the lines that form a shape and calculate curves that would pass through all the points and would be as smooth as possible. So in this case, a curve that passes through all the 4 points is a circle. So that's why the square turns into a circle. But check out, there is this canvas here in which I can draw, and then it just takes the number of lines that I draw and forms a curve instead. So if I have something that looks very jagged like this, it turns into a curve because it's smoothing. So it's not taking any points out of the shape, it's just transforming the lines that would connect the dots into curves that connect the dots, and these curves are calculated to be as smooth as possible. So that's smoothing. Now for simplification, that's a different process. It sort of achieves the same goal visually, but it does so in a different way internally, and it has a different trade-off. So the way that simplification works is there are all the dots that are collected while your mouse is moving, and I'm still keeping the mouse pressed as I say this. So one of the reasons why this is related to the thing I was talking about before, one of the reasons why I think it would be possible, it should be possible, it probably is possible to be faster on the on-mouse move loop. The function could be made faster, and that could capture more points and make the curve smoother just by virtue of having more points. That's because I look at this example, which is also browser-based, and it seems to capture more points. Even when I move fast, it seems to capture more points. So that is probably, I must believe, that is because they are not changing the DOM on every on move. So that's my guess. So they're capturing more points. But I was talking about simplification. So not only they capture more points here, but they apply this simplification thing. So I'm about to release my mouse, and you can see that it got rid of a lot of segments. It got rid of a lot of points. And instead, it is drawing a curve with fewer points, and this curve approximates the original thing that I drew. So I'm going to refresh the page to clean out the canvas, and let's try to just use the smooth and the simplification thing to actually draw a diagram of sorts. So let's draw a Venn diagram maybe. Yeah, so when I try to write, this thing doesn't really work, but that's because I didn't look at the source, but I believe that they have something that caps the number of points collected, as you can see. So this doesn't really have to do with the smoothing. It has to do with the way they're capturing the points. So there is that. It's kind of hard to write here, but if I make my letters very big, then it captures enough points for me to draw or to write. And the result kind of looks smooth and nice. And then there is path simplification, and this one is capturing a lot of points. So I should be able to write, and my Venn diagram is very bad. So I really like the result of simplification. It looks nice. It looks similar to my handwriting with a bit of help. And it leads to fewer points to render, so that's always a plus. Now, there is a downside to the simplification in terms of how we are implementing things. If we use simplification and we get rid of points, then the eraser will stop working, because the way we implemented the eraser last Friday was we would just see if the eraser was near enough one of the points in the path. But if we are getting rid of the points in the path, then there could be a really long line composed of relatively few points. And if your eraser goes through this, it doesn't get any of the points in the original curve, and the eraser would stop working. But the smoothing does not get rid of points. So if we try to use smoothing, then the eraser will still work without modification. Now, even if we decide to go with simplification, then we can still implement the eraser, but it will be more complicated because we won't be able to just rely on the points. We would have to do a more sophisticated collision detection between the eraser and the forms, the shapes on the drawing. Another advantage of simplification is that you can tune how much simplification you want to do. So this one you cannot tune. You are not getting rid of any points. It's calculating the best curve that would connect all the points. And that's it. But in terms of simplification, there is a knob. You can simplify less, getting rid of fewer points, or you can simplify more, getting rid of more points. And the more points you get rid of, the more you simplify the curve, the smoother it will be, but it will also lose detail. So for something like this age, it could do something like this, right? Where it just got rid of so much information that it doesn't resemble an age anymore. But maybe we could expose this knob to the user, and they could decide what works best for the kind of drawing that they're doing. Maybe they are writing, maybe they're drawing, maybe they're doing a diagram. So the smoothness could be dependent on what you are drawing. So that's the story about smoothing and simplification, and the ideas that I would have to fix the problem we have. And I looked a bit into how they are doing the smoothing and the simplification. But I have another idea of how to smooth things. So I want to try to start with smoothing, because the eraser will still work, because it's conceptually simpler and so forth. Because it does not expose a knob to the user. It's more, the more knobs to the user that we expose, the worse, I think, anyway. For the purpose of this application that is meant for like educators, they don't really care about 1,000 knobs. They just want to get something that works. So I have an idea for smoothing, and it's not exactly based on how PaperJS does it. But I was looking at this other SVG shape. We are using a shape called a polyline. And a polyline is just that. It is a bunch of points connected with lines. That's how we have our drawings right now. But there is this other shape in SVG called a path, and a path is more powerful than a polyline. It is probably the most powerful SVG shape. It takes as argument this D parameter. I don't really know what the D stands for, maybe the drawing. But the important thing is this path takes this D argument, and this D argument is, well, it's a language in and of itself. And in this language, you can have commands, actions, like move the cursor somewhere and draw a line. And in this example, there is no line, but maybe below there will be a line. Yeah, here. So move the cursor somewhere and then draw a line. And of course, the language is kind of cryptic because all the commands are single characters, but move the cursor somewhere, draw another line, and so forth. Or maybe, yeah, this. So here is an example of a D. Move the cursor somewhere, draw a line, draw a vertical line, draw a horizontal line, and so forth. Okay, so these are just more complicated ways of drawing a polyline. But the advantage of path over polyline is that path also gives you curves. It gives you two different kinds of curves. Cubic Bezier curves and quadratic Bezier curves. And these cubic Bezier curves, I guess, is the kind of curve you would find in an app like Illustrator or Inkscape. Each node or each point has two handles. They are, I think, related. I think that they are related. Yeah, I think that they are related somehow, but you can specify these knobs, and I cannot really interact with this, but when you change this knob here down, then this line will be more straight than it is right now. So that is a curve with a cubic Bezier curve, and then there are also quadratic Bezier curves. And this is what they look like. So as you can see, it takes a bunch of straight lines, and it turns the bunch of straight lines into something that is more smooth. And this is not the original line that was smoothed out. In this drawing, these dotted lines, they're dashed lines, they are the handles. So I was looking at this over the weekend, and I was like, maybe I can use some of these to smooth out the curve. But then I was looking at all the shapes or all the commands I have at my disposal here. So there are move to paths. Okay. There are line to, fine. And then there are cubic Bezier curves. And then using a cubic Bezier curve, you have to specify the point, but you also have to specify the handles. So I would need to calculate the handles myself. And I guess that is more or less what this smooth function is doing. Because as we can see from these, it has two handles. So it is a cubic Bezier curve. And what the smooth function from PaperJS does is to calculate where these handles need to be in relation to the original point. But what if, and I just kept looking, okay, so I have to specify the handles. Is there a way for me to not have to specify the handles? Maybe. So I looked at the quadratic Bezier curves, and look at this version. Draw a smooth quadratic Bezier curve from the current point to the endpoint specified by X and Y. So we don't have to specify the handles because the control point is a reflection of the control point of the previous curve command. if the previous command was a quadratic Bezier curve, the control point is the same as the curve starting point, current point. Any subsequent coordinate pair are interpreted as parameters for implicit, absolute, smooth, quadratic Bezier curve commands. So I didn't really try this, but I think that if we use t here and just give it a bunch of points, I think that this will draw a smooth curve, and that's what I want to try. I want to see how it feels to draw with one of these. Okay, so that's our first task. It took me the better part of this stream, like 20 minutes, to just explain what I'm about to do, but let's start doing it. First thing is, I don't want to change the behavior that we have. I will just change from polyline to path. So let's look at all the places where I have written polyline and change to path. And then here, I will not specify points. I will specify D. And then D will start with move to this location and then start drawing with a T. I don't know. What if we just say T like this and then start giving it coordinates? Does the first coordinate move the cursor to the right location? Maybe. And then we also have to check here in this location where we have the eraser. We need to change the way that we are. So, okay, let's get our heads around what's going on. So this is starting the path. It's when you put the cursor down, when you press the mouse, and it's starting the path this way. Then when you move the mouse and you are drawing, it will just append points to the curve, which I think is correct. If you are in eraser mode, then it will get all the points. So I think that I need, before I can split on the comma, I need to maybe replace T space with nothing. So I get read. I don't really need this space. I will just replace the T with nothing. So I get rid of that T in the beginning. And I guess now it's time for us to try to draw something and see how it looks. Okay, it doesn't look too great. Doesn't show anything. Let's try. Let's ignore the eraser for a moment. Let's just try to move the cursor somewhere and then start drawing. Oh, and another question is, can I have commas on these paths? Absolutely, yes, I can. It's just like a polyline. And I was looking at this because there is also the lowercase t version of this, but this is for specifying not the points, but the difference between the points it is just a different way of reasoning about this. But what we currently have is capital T because we are working with coordinates, not differences between points. So now let's try this version, moving the cursor and start drawing. And nothing. Okay, so underwhelming. How about we just play around with SVGs to figure out how this works? So I'll create a remove.html file, and I will open remove HTML on the browser. And here I will start an SVG, and I will have a path with a D, and I will copy some of these. So fill none and stroke black, Now let's see if we can move our cursor to position 1010 and then draw a line to position 2020. Yes, there is the line. And now let's try to put position 3030. Or maybe something that is not a straight line. So how about we go to 3010. Okay, so that is a line, and it's that is a curve. It's smooth, and it does seem to work. Does it work if I just have the T to begin with, like this? No. You do need to start things out with a move command. It's fine. You move your cursor to the beginning and then you start drawing. So what is going on with this? I would like to open the developer tools so that I can see the SVG that I am drawing. So I know that in the Electron documentation in the docs for browser window, okay, under web preferences, there is an option for me to open devtools, like so. No. Yeah, but it doesn't work. It doesn't open devtools. So how about we alert? It's not pretty, but we can just alert this and then it will show up. So every time we take out the mouse, we can alert the drawing. Oh, Felipe says, hi Felipe. You can use Ctrl-Shift-I to open DevTools. Okay, we can give that a try. It opens DevTools on this, which is a different window, but let's try here, and then it opens the DevTools on top of my whole window, and I suppose I can look at the SVG, but I can no longer draw. So I will have to draw and then open DevTools. But yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Let me see if I changed anything else. No, okay. So the way this is going to work is I draw something, and then I open DevTools. And then... Oh, so maybe the reason why I cannot draw is because my app is failing in the first place, because it seems like the errors are piling up when I draw. Okay, so attribute D expected number. Oh, the problem is just a comma here. Right after the T, I have a comma. Okay. And you know how when you open DevTools, there is this, the window is no longer transparent. So currently my drawing window is transparent. But when I open DevTools, the window is no longer transparent. So to get out of the app, I cannot use Command Q, can I? Oh, it works. It wasn't working in a previous version, but it's working now. So yeah, I can do that. But what I was doing before was using Command Tab to switch to Visual Studio Code and then hitting Control-C, but I was doing that without actually seeing anything. Okay, but I can use Command Q, that is working. So, okay, I know what the problem is. The problem is right here when we are appending stuff. We are always putting this comma. So maybe we could, here is a hack. Maybe we could start the T like this. Or alternatively, I guess we could not use the comma. I'm going to keep the comma and I will do this. So it's going to move the cursor to a place, it's going to start drawing on that place, and then it's going to move somewhere else. And then the commas will make sense. And Felipe says, you can also hit the 3 vertical dots menu to detach the DevTools from the window. It might make it transparent if they are in different windows. I want to test this, so let's see. First I'll try to draw something, and now it is working. It is crazy though. I mean, it's not useful, it's not what I want, but I kind of like this. Okay, but you said that I can use this to detach. Oh, okay, so if I detach, then the window becomes transparent again, and the window is always on top of everything, so I'm not able to interact with the DevTools. Fun stuff. All right, okay, so my idea of using a quadratic Bezier curves doesn't work. But it's so crazy. What's going on? When I do it like this over here, maybe it has to do with the trick I am using to deal with the comma. No, not really. It kind of works here. So Felipe likes the tool too. Yeah, it is crazy. Why is it doing that? I mean, part of the reason must be that I don't really know how quadratic Bezier curves work. Crazy stuff. Okay, so I think that idea will not fly. I am really curious to know why though, because when I do it here, it seems to work. When I draw it by hand, it doesn't seem that bad. You know what, I want to take a look at the points that this thing is putting, because I expect that when I am drawing very slowly, and it is creating all these crazy shapes, but I don't expect these points to be very far apart. So how about we open the DevTools? Oh no! That is a nightmare now. Because I detached the window, and because my drawing window is always on top, I am unable to interact with the window. I am even unable to interact with the window to bring it back. So now I am locked out. Oh no! What do I do? Is there like a keyboard shortcut that would put the DevTools on the side again? I don't think there is, but we can always open Google Chrome to figure this out. Oh no! Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, there is no way for me to change the window. Okay. I just broke the debugging. I just broke DevTools. I can always just come here and I guess comment this out. And now it will no longer be on top of everything. I guess I can do that. Okay, but I wanted to test something that was not drawing fast. It was drawing slowly to see if the points are near each other. Especially here at the end. That's the part that is the most interesting to me. Okay, so now my drawing canvas is not always on top. And let's look at the SVG. Yeah, so these numbers are close to each other. So that's not it. I was thinking that maybe the numbers would be far apart, and that's what was throwing off the whole thing, but that's not the problem. Oh, and now that I have access to the window, I can do this, and then I would be able to uncomment this, and devtools would still work. Fine. So my idea doesn't fly. Quadratic Bezier curves like this doesn't work. And I guess it kind of makes sense that the line that we ended up with kind of looked like this. So if you have a bunch of straight lines, I guess, so I guess these points would form a straight line, you would end up with something that wiggles like this, because the thing about a quadratic Bezier curve is that there are two handles for each point, as there are two handles for each point on the cubic Bezier curve, but one of the points, let's say the left hand side point of a point, so the left hand side handle of a point is the same as the right hand side handle of the other point. So the effect is that it wiggles like this. Oh, so Felipe gave another idea of how I could have gotten out of my situation programmatically this time. I would use this command line to position the doc, the devtools. Where is my mind? The devtools, to position the devtools programmatically. Okay, but I'm not gonna do that. I don't really need. So there is another option here, which is this elliptical arc curves, but I think that they would be even worse, and I would also have to figure out positions for handles, or maybe I would have to figure out arcs and radiuses. So that's not gonna work. So how about we reverse this idea? Oh, I was looking forward to being able to just do this with a path with quadratic curves. That would be nice. Okay, reverted the thing. We are back to drawing with kind of squarish lines like this. So next, we can try to smooth paths, and we can try to simplify paths. And I was looking for packages that would do this, and I was looking at the implementation of PaperJS for this, and I think it could be kind of nice to implement this by hand. It's not too much of a hassle, and there is a paper. Where is the paper? I think I downloaded the paper. Here is the paper. So there is a paper explaining how to simplify paths. So this is not about smoothing. This paper is about simplification, and there are packages that implement this. There are packages that don't implement a drawing engine. No, it just implements the algorithm from that paper, which is the algorithm that PaperJS uses. That's how I learned about the algorithm and the paper in the first place. So this simplification, so remember, this is the one that takes a bunch of points and simplifies, gets rid of some of these points. So there is a paper showing you how to do this, and there are libraries that implement just this. So I just give the library a bunch of points and that knob, how much I want to simplify, and then it gives me back a bunch of points and then the handles. So it gives me point, handle, handle, point, handle, handle, point, handle, handle, point at the end, which is pretty much what I would have to give to the SVG, because now we are talking about, I think, quadratic, about cubic Bezier curves. So this would just be point, handle, handle, right? So point, handle, handle, point, handle, handle, and then a point at the end. or rather, I think I would need to, if I were to use this library, it would give me a bunch of, it would start giving me a point, and I would need to move the cursor there, and then it would give me handle, handle, next point, handle, handle, next point, handle, handle, next point, and I would need to pass this as handle, handle, next point. So that's how this would play out. And it could be kind of fun, but it will break the eraser, and we would have to either read the paper and implement it or use one of the libraries and whatnot. Or I could try, I didn't really look for this, but maybe there are packages that would implement the smoothing. And maybe we could look at them or maybe implement them by hand. Let's just do a quick search for this, but then I want to switch gears and talk about something else. So let's look for smooth on NPM. React smooth. This is about animation, smooth scroll bar. So smooth bezier. Is this how you write bezier? Yes. Draw smooth bezier curves in canvas. No. A library for generating smooth two-dimensional interpolation curves. That's more like it. A day ago. Okay. Bezier interpolation. Make it smooth. Isn't this the same from the other one above? Okay. Test and generate curves. Blah. Oh, okay. Math borrowed from here. Okay, I don't think that's exactly what I want. Now this is what I want. I give it a bunch of points, and it returns to me a curve that passes through all these points. So I think it's the smooth path from PaperJS. And there is a demo. Nah, okay. Yeah, let's save this for the future. That may be interesting. With that, let's switch to something else. So I was thinking about how this mouse move function needs to be fast. And one of the things that mouse move is doing is it's checking at is the current line set, is the current eraser radius set, and so forth. It has to check that for every mouse move, and I suppose it's fast. I don't think it makes any difference, but I had another idea of how to implement this, and I want to give it a try. Maybe it will be faster, but maybe it will just make more sense. I mean, the code will read better. So let's see. I will implement this idea. The idea goes like this. Let's talk about how we currently do things. We have listener for 3 events: mouse down, mouse move, and mouse up. And we have global variables. On mouse down, we set the global variable. On mouse move, we look at the global variable. And on mouse up, we reset the global variable. And then we need to check on mouse move, where are we? Which tool are we using? What should I do? So here is my idea. What if we just have a handler for mouse down? When you click, I set handlers so that the handlers will be dynamically set. So when I click, I create handlers for mouse move and mouse up. And the handlers will be specific to the tool that I currently have. So I will not need to check stuff like this over and over. Additionally, things like the menu will be in scope. So let's talk about what the menu is. I have that menu window, which is a separate browser window that I can move around. It has its own frame. And the menu here is the situation of this form. So what is my current color? What is my current thickness? What is my current tool? And because on mouse down and on mouse move and on mouse up are all different functions, all different handlers, what I collect here on the menu is not available on mouse move. Now, of course, we could have a global variable that would store the menu. We, in fact, have global variables that are storing information from the menu anyway, like the current eraser radius is calculated based on the menu, and we could just as well have a menu global variable. But if we have a mouse down and we dynamically set the event listeners on mouse down, then the menu is just naturally in scope, which I think is kind of advantageous, and it kind of reads nice. And I think it would be fun to implement it this way and see how it looks. So that's what we are gonna do now. So let's start here on mouse down. On mouse down, we look at the situation of the menu and we check which tool we are using. So if we are using the pen or the marker, then I want to create a polyline. This indentation is not good. I want to create a polyline, get a hold of the polyline, but I will not use global variables anymore, remember? So instead, I will have here const current line. And then I will set an on mouse move handler. And I don't need to check that the current line exists. I know it does because I just set it here. It's in scope. And I will need to stop doing this on mouse up. So how do I remove a handler? I think I know, but let's see. Remove event handler or listener. Oh, it was not how I was remembering. I thought that add event listener would return something that I would need to store and pass to remove event listener. But it doesn't seem like it works that way. No. Instead, what I need to do is to pass the function itself, the event handler itself. So this is what I do on mouse move. So I'll need to extract this. So how about we just call this function like draw or whatever. And oh, it needs to receive the event. So I'll have draw here, and then on mouse up, we remove event listener draw. And then we can remove this part. And we should also, I guess I can comment out this whole section. And the eraser will not work, but the pen and the marker should. Yeah, I think this all makes sense. Let's try it out. Oh, on mouse up is not removing the event, so I start drawing and I never stop. Okay. Ah, yeah, that's not how this is gonna play out. What I have to do instead is I have to add an event listener for mouse up, and in that event, when I do a mouse up, then I will call a function that does remove event listener of the same event with the same function, like so. Okay, now it's working again. Is it faster? No, not really. It's not any faster. But I think conceptually it is more correct, because in our code, previously, to understand the pen and the marker, you would have to read part of the mouse down, part of the mouse move, and part of the mouse up, and remember the global variable. But now, to understand the pen and the marker, you have to read this section of the code. It's self-contained. I like this better conceptually. I think it makes more sense. And now I'm thinking about the order in which I want to present this. I think it makes sense for me to talk about how to create a polyline, then how to, maybe it's not draw that I mean, maybe it's add point, because this is what this function is doing. And then this thing is called current line, and I suppose it could be just called polyline. And it doesn't need to say current blah blah blah, because of course it is. It's right here in scope. So everything is more proper, I think. I prefer it this way. So polyline, add point, and then finally I present the event listeners here at the bottom. So I think this is the best presentation of this code. Now let's implement the eraser. So I will not need all of these. I will need a bunch of what's going on here. So how about we just do something similar to what we did here. So we're going to copy and paste some code. And then we can get rid of these comments. And now to understand the eraser, you just have to read this portion of the code. You don't have to read 3 different call event handlers and a global variable. No, it's all self-contained. Very nice. I don't need this if. I do need this idea of elements to remove. Well, all of this is going to go into a function that will be called. So this bit will be done similarly. Maybe I could extract it below. I will copy and paste for now, and then we can extract. We'll see. This variable doesn't need to exist anymore. I can just hard code this decision over here. And then what is this? This is like remove shapes or remove elements. And I will need to get a hold of the event. And I will do it like this. And then this function is not called at point, it's remove elements. Yeah, fine. Let's see if the eraser is still working. So I draw something and I enable the eraser and it's still working. Yeah, I am liking the way that this reads. Now, let's try to extract this because it is similar, right? I guess I will commit what I have. Is the code shorter? It is. It's also shorter. Nice. Not that I care about the length. of the code. I care about the readability a lot more, but it's nice to have something that is shorter. So this bit that is saying add event listener and on mouse up remove the event listener is always the same, at least for the two different tools that we have now. If we were to add more tools, then maybe these would be different, but yeah, I believe that most tools that work with a click and drag thing would kind of work this way. So let's extract this to the end of this. So we will have I guess I'll call this handlemousemove. Is this the convention from React? I was thinking about the convention from React, and they have a convention for handlers. It's handle something, handle change, handle submit. So handlemousemove. And I capitalized this, but maybe I shouldn't. So it's handlemousemove, one thing. And it starts null. Well, if it starts null, I think we can start it undefined. So it starts undefined. And then here we will say that handlemousemove is this function. And we remove this bit. And over here, the handlemousemove will be this function. And then we remove this bit from here. But we paste it here and we change this to handlemousemove. Very clever, huh? So we are doing on mouse down. We are checking what's the situation of the menu. We start to define this handlemousemove function that depends on the tool. And there is an opportunity for us to do some work right as we start. And then there is some opportunity for us to do something on mouse move. And here we just handlemousemove. We don't do anything special at the start. We just define this handlemousemove function. Okay, let's see if this works. And it does. Awesome. And the code is even shorter, 3 lines. Doesn't really matter. Oh no, I usually commit with a single space, and now I committed with 2 spaces. No, that message needs to be a single space. There you go. Okay, that was a fun exercise. I like the way that this reads. What is up next? How about we do some Electron stuff? We already did some drawing engine stuff. It failed, but it was fun. We did something. We did some refactoring, so some JavaScript work. It doesn't really change anything about the app. It just changed the implementation. It may have made it faster by the slightest bit. Felipe asks, unrelated question, have you ever committed something with a message? I guess I'll take this to talk about my relationship with commit messages. It depends on the project. In a project like this that is a prototype at best, at least for now, and there are not many people working on this, my relationship with commit messages is, it doesn't really matter. If I am contributing to some project that is maintained by more people, that is not maintained by mainly just me, and that is more mature, then I will write better commit messages. I will even do things like squash commits together squash commits together to have a single commit for a pull request, that sort of thing. But the truth is, I don't really find myself getting too much out of the commit logs. And that's true even of established projects that have good commit logs. For instance, I was looking at something on the Electron code base. There was this piece of documentation about Electron application packaging. Maybe if I spell it correctly. I was able to find some older versions of the documentation in which this page, yeah, so here it is. This is an old version of the documentation in which there is this page about application packaging. And this page does not exist anymore in the Electron documentation. Now it's called application distribution. And the part that I cared about, which was about Azar, so where is it? Yeah, this bit. This bit doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist here in the documentation. And it doesn't exist in the README for Azar either. And that bit, that explanation is just gone forever. So I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I remembered that this existed, and I was looking for it everywhere. And really, the commit messages, the git log, didn't help me at all. What did help me was the search on GitHub that links to pull requests, issues, and so forth. So I find that the GitHub search is better than the git logs. And even for things like git blame, you have to be very careful about how you do stuff. For instance, if you just decide that you want to reorganize some files in a different directory structure, then git blame will not work trivially anyway. You would have to do some digging to get any useful information out. So I guess I commit with a single space because I don't find a lot of value in the commit messages. I find more value in the surrounding documentation. The websites, the GitHub repository, the README, the issues, the GitHub search, and so forth. There you go. Okay, so I was saying, we talked about the drawing engine, we talked about some JavaScript shenanigans and event handling. There is one thing I want to try, since I'm doing this refactoring, and then we'll move on to the next topic for the last 20 minutes. The thing that I wanted to try is I want to see how much drawing an SVG slows things down and I'm able to capture fewer points because of it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the app and I'm going to draw something very fast, and it will be all a bunch of straight lines like this. So we can definitely see the 12 points that form this curve. I'll take a print screen of this. Now, I will change the implementation so that it does not manipulate the DOM on every mouse move. And then we'll see if it is any faster. Let's see how much manipulating the DOM affects the quality of the drawing. That's what I want to test. So, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to have a global variable. I am going to call this global variable remove me. It starts empty. And then I am on handle move for the pen and the marker. I'm not going to do all of this. I am just going to say remove me.push X and Y, and I'm going to paste the thing that I will want to use later here below so I don't lose it. I'm just going to capture this event. the coordinates from this event. So this should be faster, right? It should be faster for me to push something into an array than it is for me to manipulate the DOM. So this is handlemousemove. Now on mouse up, I will want to do something. So I'm just hard coding this because I will probably throw it away anyway. So I guess what I'm gonna do is remove the handlemousemove handler, and I will insert a polyline that is remove me. Oh, let me check something. So if I have a list of lists with numbers like this, and then I interpolate that into a string, I end up with a bunch of numbers separated with commas. So here is a cool trick. I will not capture X and Y like this. I will just put them in a list. And then I will over here just say remove me, because it will concatenate into a list with a bunch of commas. That will work. Oh, and here I don't have access to the menu anymore. Whatever. Black 3 1. Good stuff. So now I will only be able to see the curve when I am done drawing, but I will try to draw about the same speed and about the same shape. And let's compare this. Oh, I guess I need to take a screenshot of this. So let's take a screenshot of these. And I think I already know the answer, but let's compare this side by side. Where are my screenshots? At the desktop? So this one came first. This one was manipulating the DOM. This one was later. This one was not manipulating the DOM. I mean, of course, this is a scientific measurement. Of course, I was not able to draw exactly the same shape with exactly the same speed. But I would say that, yes, it does make a difference. I can, for instance, right here, I can see that it has a few more points than it had over here. So yeah, it does make a difference. Is it a significant difference? I don't think so, especially if we can come up with a smoothing algorithm. I think that the smoothing algorithm will notice that we are doing this path, and it will just smooth just fine, I think. Now this gap is super big. Even the eraser would have a hard time here. So maybe, so here's something. Maybe we will write a simplification thing that adds points instead of removing them, or a smoothing thing that adds points to the curve. I still want it to be bezier, and I still want to have curves, but maybe it will add some of the points in the middle of this interpolation. That's an idea, maybe. We'll see. Okay, so those changes I want to revert. Manipulating the DOM is slow, but it's good enough for us, and I really like this idea of manipulating the DOM, because then I am just using the SVG, and I think that that architecture is probably the more conceptually pure. Fun stuff. Okay, so let's move on to something that is more Electron stuff. So I was reading up on this, and let me just make sure that I covered everything that I had here. Yeah, so all these tabs, they have to do with the path simplification stuff and path smoothing stuff. So here is the implementation from PaperJS. Here is some other implementation that is just the implementation of that paper I mentioned before. And here is another implementation of the same paper. It's actually a fork. I don't really know the difference between the fork and the original. But with that, I think I covered everything I had from smoothing. So let's switch topics. Now let's talk about Electron stuff. So I learned that you can, in the browser process, use window open. So I want to learn more about how this works. And now this is again Electron stuff, because now we are talking about window management again. So first of all, I want to test what window open does in the browser, because if I understand correctly, it opens a pop-up, but we'll see. Doesn't do anything, but yeah, the window here said that a pop-up was blocked. So if I click on it, it opens a pop-up. Okay, so that's what it does in the browser. I didn't know it because I never used window open, because I never had to use a pop-up. But it seems like in Electron you can use window open, and it will open a window on top of the existing window. So maybe we don't have to do the window management the way that we are doing, and maybe potentially we wouldn't even need to use inter-process communication. Wouldn't that be great? I think it would. So let's see. The way that this can work is I cannot load the menu from the main process. So now I cannot draw on top of stuff because it queries the menu. Okay, but never mind that. Let's go to index. And as our first line, let's window open. And here I have to look at the docs. So there is the MDN docs for window open, of course, there is. And this is what the documentation for the browser. But then there is this special version of window open that is documented here on the Electron docs. So let's see how this works. How about we just copy this line? Okay, so it opened. And how about we start changing some things? So maybe... okay, you can pass node integration, that's fun. Do I have to pass underscore blank? Probably, because I need a frame name. But how about I don't open a website? How about I open our other HTML file, the menu HTML. Okay, cool. It opened and it is not interactive. I suppose it's not interactive because why would it not be interactive? I don't know. Maybe because it's frameless? I don't know. Okay, let me first check in the menu if we have something that we want to change. Oh yeah, so I had this other idea that I want to test. It is maybe conceptually a simpler way of doing this inter-process communication. So I want to maybe pause on my current experiment and go to this other experiment. So I'm going to revert my changes. And maybe this will be a step on the way of this other idea that I have of using window open. So let's pause the window open idea. I'm going to start a new idea, and we will circle back. So the way that I'm doing inter-process communication is I start here, sending an event. Where is it? It's on the menu, so let me look for menu. So I send an event to the main process, and then the main process sends an event to the menu, querying the state of the menu. And I do all this shenanigans with promises and everything. But look at how we are sending the request. We are using menu window web contents. Could we get a hold of the DOM from web contents? If we could, wouldn't that be a lot of fun? Get all web contents, get focused web contents. Okay. My idea here being, can I get a hold of the DOM from within the main process via the web contents, and then I don't have to send a message and get a response back. I would just query the web contents from here. Is that something that is possible? There is no autocomplete. And I'm using send. Okay, so there are more methods. They're hidden here under instance methods. These are, what are they? They are, oh, so these are static methods. Okay, instance methods. Get URL is focused, stop, reload. Insert CSS, okay. So if I can insert CSS and I can execute JavaScript, I should be able. If I can execute JavaScript, I am able to get a hold of the DOM, right? Via this. But is there a better way? Finding page? Not really. I think this is looking for text. Capture page? Oh, this is probably a snapshot. Yeah, this is a screenshot. Electron web contents DOM. How to get the DOM tree from the browser window in Electron app. Bingo. No. Oh no. So people are saying that maybe I can use execute JavaScript. I'm going to give this 2 more minutes and then I'm going to give up. Okay, I am giving up. I am going to try to use execute JavaScript. We'll see. Execute JavaScript. Execute JavaScript in isolated world. Aren't we all in an isolated world? I am. Okay, so contents, execute JavaScript of code, and then user gesture. A promise that resolves with the result of the executed code or is rejected if the result of the code is a rejected promise. Evaluates code in page. In the browser window with some HTML API likes request full screen can only be invoked by a gesture from the user. Setting user gesture to true will remove this limitation. Fun! Code execution will be suspended until web page stop loading. I think it should be until web page stops loading. But that's okay. Okay, so, all right. So I should be able to do this, right? So I should be able to say execute JavaScript, and I will need to make this asynchronous, and I will await on the result of running this, and I will return whatever this returns. And then on the menu, I don't need to handle this event. Oh, but I do want this line. Or maybe not. Maybe I just get a hold of the whole form. But this is probably going to be serialized to go through the processes. Doesn't really talk about any serialization here in the docs, but I'm pretty sure that it will serialize this. So let's start with the simple stuff. Let's start with this. Okay, let's see. I can still draw. That works. All right. We simplified something. I'm happy. Now, can I take this a step further and not return an object, but return the DOM element itself? Ooh, spooky. So this is going to serialize in a weird way through the inter-process communication. I mean, there must be some sort of inter-process communication between the renderer and the main process, and there definitely will be inter-process communication between this and the main window. But is this still going to work? No. So main menu, an object, what's going on here? An object could not be cloned. Error occurred in handler form menu main. And where exactly in this file? It doesn't really say. So I wonder if the problem is with execute JavaScript or if the problem is between the main process and the main process, this process. Could be in either one. So how about we just do this in the app initialization and we can see if the error occurs right as the app starts. And it does. Is the same error? Object cannot be cloned. Yes, it is the same error. So we know now that we need to make this serializable. Okay, that is also more conceptually clean anyway to serialize this. So I'm not gonna complain. Can I get rid of maybe the object from entries? I think that part should be optional because the URL search params should be clonable. No, it's not. Okay, so we will do this. I am completely happy with this line. Maybe we write it like this. This is such a hack, but it makes the menu so clean. There is no need for any Electron stuff on this HTML. It's so clean. Look at this. It fits on one screen. Awesome. Awesome stuff. And it still works, right? I deleted a line. Let me check. Yeah, it still works. Can I switch to an eraser? Yes, eraser works. So let's see what we changed. Look at that, fewer lines and no promise by hand creation shenanigans. No wants, no. Oh, even this message name can be simpler. Okay. So that's a stepping stone in the right direction, I think. We could rename this menu main to just read like menu now. Does it still work? Yes. And I suppose that in theory, I could use a module from Electron called remote. And in using the remote module, I could just go and query the menu directly, because I could just call this execute JavaScript directly. So we would directly from here go to the menu and get a hold of it. Architecturally, I think that is kind of fun that you can do that, but people are warned to not use the remote module anymore. So we are using IPC, and I guess conceptually what's happening here is also using IPC. It must be. Given the error message, I think it's very clear that it is. So I still like it. I like it better this way, because we simplified the menu here, and because there is no shenanigans with promises. So, all right. But let's return to the window open thing, because maybe we will not need to have two processes anyway. That would make me happy. So let's see. Here on the main thing, let's do window open of menu HTML. What is up? So we have our current, our other window. I forgot to comment it out in the main process, but then we also have this one, and this one is not interactive. So it seems like it's opening, but it's not on top of the current window. First, let's comment out all of these. No, not all of that. All of these. So it doesn't render two of the menus. And let's give this a brief read, and maybe there is something that we can do to make it render on top. Okay, I am interested in this null second parameter. So what if we pass null as the second parameter? What happens then? It's not interactive, it's transparent and everything. It's definitely inheriting some of the parameters from the parent. Can I say transparent false? And now it's no longer transparent. So I do all of these things for the drawing canvas to appear on top of everything, and I will have to undo some of these parameters. So let's pass these parameters. Yeah, there is no workaround. Let's do this. And we want to change them. So has shadow. I guess it could have a shadow. Enable larger than screen. False. Resizable. False. Movable. True. Frame. True. Transparent. False. Can we specify a window size? No. It's not on top. I cannot interact with the window. So the second parameter here is a frame name. Let's see what this does. Because maybe if there is some way for me to say that I want this window that I'm opening to be a child of the current window, it will appear on top. Window name. Okay, so this is not the window title. Let's see what the docs for from MDN says, what the docs say about this. Okay, if I want to open a new window, I should say this. But I already tried this before, but it didn't have all these parameters, so maybe that changes stuff. Oh no, it's not interactive. That could be so fun if it worked. Yep, nothing. Okay. So now I want to explore something else, and then we are going to wrap up. The thing that I want to explore is the reason. Okay, I guess I should maybe remove the changes before I start that other thing. Let's see. I'll just look for window. I'm still hung up on this. Electron window open. Always on top. Because, okay, so my reasoning here is I am using this set always on top to put the drawing window on top. And I would like for the menu to be on top of that. So maybe there is some way for me to say that I want the window open to be always on top of the other window. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Felipe says maybe set always on top true. So let's try that. I'll open the docs here for browser window because I don't want to make a typo. So always on top. I mean, it's inheriting stuff from the parent, so yeah, but always on top we are doing with a special function call because we want a screensaver level, so we are not just saying always on top true here. No, same story. Not interactive. Resizable, movable, frame, transparent. Yeah, I don't know. Set browser window always on top, even other app is full screen. Yeah, the problem with this is that, as far as I can tell, this is a property of browser window, and what I receive is from window open is not an instance of browser window. It's a browser window proxy. And a browser window proxy does it have a set always on top thing? Maybe it does. Let's see. So could I just call set always on top screensaver of 1 or maybe 2? We learned about this in a previous episode in which I was battling. I copied this line from another app called Cap, and I was seeing how they would battle. Notestrator and Cap would battle because they both wanted to be at the same level. And we learned that Apple discourages people from using levels higher than 1, but that it works. So we'll see. No, not interactive. I wonder if there is an error in the console. Yeah, set always on top is not a function. So yeah, that's not gonna fly. Yeah, I'll Google around for this, and I may play with some of the other parameters, but then I will stop. I think you need to call window focus after you open the window. No, not interactive. That's just the nature of the game. I want this drawing window to be on top of so many things that it's not surprising that it wants to be on top of the other window as well. And that works on browser windows, not sure about native windows. Yeah, so there is the problem. We are working with a browser window proxy, not with a browser window, so it doesn't really work the same way. Ooh, there is set visible on all workspaces. That's kind of fun. Because let's run the app. I guess I can revert these changes, or maybe I can just comment this out or uncomment this, and that will draw a menu that I can interact with and another one that I cannot interact with. But if I go to another, so you can see that my drawing is treated like a window like this. And if I go to another space, it doesn't work. So maybe I found a solution for a problem that I was not exactly looking for the solution, but I found it, I think. Let's comment this out so it doesn't render 2 of these. And let's look at the docs for browser window. So what was the name of the thing? Visible workspace, I think is the keyword. Workspace. A Boolean property that determines whether the window is visible on all workspaces. And there is no way for me to pass this to the constructor, but I can say set visible on all workspaces true. Yeah, let's try this. Okay, the drawing still behaves like a window of sorts, but if I select another window, my drawing is on top of it. Don't think that's a big deal. And if I switch to another workspace, then it still works. I am still drawing on top of my window. I mean, it would be kind of nice if the drawing stayed static while I switched windows. And I could even draw in the gap in between. That could be kind of nice, but I am completely fine with this behavior because now I can do this and I can keep drawing. So this line fixes an issue and I want this line. And this is still a work in progress. So let's see. Felipe has another suggestion. Check the native window example on the window open docs. Model? Is this a special name of some kind? Do I want to keep all these shenanigans? I'll keep all the shenanigans. Let's test. No, not interactive. Let's maybe try to get rid of the shenanigans, and I think that model is not a special name in any way, but no. You know what? I give up on this idea because it could be kind of nice to not have to do inter-process communication, but it doesn't work very easily. We would have to undo with this line. We would have to undo all the inherited properties of the parent window. It just doesn't sound like fun. So oh, yeah. So, okay, let me recap. I said that there was something I wanted to try and see and understand, and that would drive me, drive this decision about the inter-process communication, multiple windows, a single window, window open, and whatnot. The reason why I want to have two windows is so that I can make one of the windows click through. Right? So I read this issue, and I think I mentioned this in every stream. I read this issue on the GitHub repository for Electron saying that it's hard, possible, but hard to make a window partly click through and partly opaque. So let's see if we can make a window click through, and if we can, then yeah, we'll continue. But if we cannot make a window click through, if it is hard to make a window click through, then that feature just goes out the window. It's a nice feature. It's a feature that I would like to have, but if it's impossible, then it's impossible. Or if it's too hard, we'll not do it now. The feature that I'm talking about here is we will have a drawing and we would be able to say, okay, now make the drawing click through so I can interact with the apps behind the drawing. So maybe I have a diagram that I drew here on the right and I can scroll and write some code and point to the diagram and such. So that would be kind of fun to have this feature. To have this feature, I would need to toggle the click-through ability of a browser window. So I will have to go search for browser window and look for through. Set shape. No. If, and the trade-off here is, if we cannot make a window click through, then that feature goes out the window, and in that case I could have a single browser window, which is both my canvas and my menu. I'll just handle everything in HTML, and I will make a div that is draggable, and that's my menu. So that's something I can do. That's how Cap does it, by the way. They have an overlay that is a full screen thing, and they draw with a div on top of that overlay. And they handle the click and dragging all in HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So let's look for Electron click through window. Ignore mouse events. Okay, so let's read this carefully. Options, forward. If true, forwards mouse move messages to Chromium, enabling mouse-related events such as mouse leave. Only used when ignore is true. If ignore is false, forwarding is always disabled regardless of this value. Makes the window ignore all mouse events. All mouse events happened in this window. This is not proper English. All mouse events that happened in this window will be passed to the window below this window. But if this window has focus, it will still receive keyboard events. Okay, I think that's what I want. So let's see. How about I make the main window, set ignore mouse events of true. And I did not really understand the forward option, so I will just not use it. And now I should not be able to draw on the app. And I am not able to draw on the app. But I know that my drawing window is still on top because it is always on top. It's on top of everything. So how about we make this something that you can maybe use on the menu? How about that? Yeah, let's go tinker with the menu. So I will have another label that is draw. And the value is, don't really need a value for this one, I don't think. And then it will be type radio and name, how do I call this? Maybe mouse events. I don't really need a name, actually. No, I don't need a name. All I need is another one of these. So I will have draw mode. Initially it will be checked. And I will have click through mode. That initially will not be checked. And I will have on change events that will now need to send a message to the main process, because the main process is in charge of controlling the visibility of the main window. So let's go to the index grab that preamble for interprocess communication. And it was a sweet, brief moment in which the menu did not need interprocess communication, but that moment is over. So let's say interprocess communication dot send what do we send? We send visibility. It's not visibility, it is interactivity, it is mode. Yeah, I guess I'll call this mode. And this one will be draw, and this will be click. These names are terrible. Click through. And this indentation is terrible. Okay. So now when we run the app, we have two new options, and they send events. Oh, they don't have names, so they're not mutually exclusive. I guess they needed names after all. And they are sending events to the main process. The main process is just not listening to these events, so it doesn't do much. So now let's listen for the event. Yeah, right here. So IPC main handle mode will receive an event that we ignore, and we receive a mode. So I guess we could just say true and false. So yeah, let's call this not mode, but ignore mouse events. And then this will be, I don't think it will be a boolean, I think it will be a string, but we can compare to true. So with that, let's rename some stuff over here. The name will be ignore mouse events. We'll send ignore mouse events. And here we want to say false. Don't ignore mouse events. And here we want to say true. Yes, ignore mouse events. So initially I should be able to draw, and I am. And then I can say click through, and now I am still able to draw. Okay. Let's debug this. Let's make sure that we are receiving the event. We are not. Let's make sure that onChange is firing. Let's make sure that the IPC renderer is available here. It is an object. Let's make sure that send is the right method to call. Seems to be. So we send on one side and we don't receive on the other side. Oh, I don't think it is handle. I think it's on, because I'm not using invoke. I am using send. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. So, oh, I could have tested that I was switching between the modes correctly, but I did not test. So I'm able to draw and click through, And now I'm interacting with Visual Studio Code and I'm dragging stuff that I didn't want to drag. Awesome. Using a pen for interacting with user interface is a nightmare. But I am able to draw and to click through. So not only did we... Oh, so now I am in drawing mode. I can go to click through mode and yeah, fun stuff. So not only did we check that the feature was possible, but we actually implemented the feature. Awesome. So because this feature does work, we will want to use multiple windows, inter-process communication, and yada, yada, yada. It would have been fun to be able to use window open, but that's just the nature of the game. Felipe asks, can you test if typing on the keyboard works with click-through mode? Okay, I can test this. I don't care because here's how I have it in my head. When you are in click-through mode, you would need to switch to draw mode to be able to draw or to interact or to erase or whatever. So you would need to be in that mode because I don't want to necessarily override keyboard shortcuts from other applications. Right? So I don't really care all that much. I think that we will have a global keyboard shortcut and or a menu bar thing that would kick you into drawing mode, and then we would be able to do anything. But this would be a global keyboard shortcut and a single keyboard shortcut, maybe a couple keyboard shortcuts like for showing and hiding and going to drawing mode, but we'll just have a couple keyboard shortcuts and they will be global because I want you to be able to trigger Notestrator from wherever you are. So I don't really care about the mouse, the keyboard events, but since you asked, I will see what they do. But before I will commit, because I don't want to commit the experiment I'm about to do. So let's see. IPC main, ignore mouse events, set ignore mouse events, and then the menu, the renderer, and we have type radio, ignore mouse events. Huh, fun stuff. We could just send this dot name and this dot value. Does it matter? Should I do it this way? I guess I will. So how about we have value of false and true, and then in these positions we could say this name and this value, right? So I'm able to draw, click through, and I can interact with Visual Studio Code, go back to drawing, go back to Visual Studio Code. And now these two on changes are exactly the same code. We could extract that somewhere, but we won't. So let's go back to the drawing window and do something when we use the keyboard chart, the keyboard. So we'll say window dot add event listener on key press, and I would just alert key pressed. So now when I run the app, I'm able to draw, and when I type a letter, it doesn't do anything. Do I have this wrong? MDN on key press. Oh yeah, I have this wrong. It's not on key press. It's add event listener key press. I'm able to draw. I type something and it says key pressed. Now let's go to click through mode. And it does not receive any keyboard events. But maybe that's what the other part of the documentation was about. So let's see what ignore mouse events has in store for us. So it's options forward, true. I'm able to draw. I click on something, key pressed, and now it doesn't trigger. And for a good measure, I will also try it with forward false, because I don't fully understand what forward does. So I'm able to draw, go to click through, interact with Visual Studio Code, go back to draw, key press. Yeah, so I think it's safe for us to say that no, the keyboard events will not be available to us while we are in click-through mode. But as mentioned, that's fine by me. Yeah, let's push. We implemented something. Yeah, Felipe says great, great. Happy to have solved your question. Yeah, so I think that's good for today. I went over like 30 minutes from what I expected, but that's fine. So we played around with smooth drawing, and it was not smooth sailing. We played around with window open, and it was not smooth sailing. But we refactored the drawing algorithm, and that worked very well. We are now generating event handlers dynamically, and the event handlers are more concise. The code reads better, and it may be slightly more performance, but I don't think it is really. We also experimented with using the JavaScript part of the project to handle the points to see if DOM manipulation was slowing things down, and it is slowing things down, but negligibly, I think. And we implemented click-through mode, so fun stuff. What we are going to do next, I think, may be like the menu bar, the global keyboard shortcuts, that kind of thing. Maybe making the window for the menu look better. I mean, just CSS-wise, make it more appealing. That sort of thing. Maybe handling the kinds of things that we don't want the menu window to do, like we don't want it to be closable, I don't think. We may want to have a way to hide, but we never want to close the window. So there will be a hide thing that we control, but there will not be a close window button. So I don't think we need the 3 buttons on the top left to close, minimize, and maximize. I don't think we need those for the menu. So that sort of thing. But I don't know if I'm going to work on this tomorrow or not, because IDDQD Sound invited me for a second collaboration over at his channel doing ReaScripts, but we have not really confirmed that we are going to do this tomorrow. So maybe, probably, I will be over at IDDQD Sound writing some Reaper in Lua, some ReaScripts in Lua, and it's at the same time. So it's over at IDDQD Sound at 5:30 UTC. But he hasn't replied yet. I don't know if we are going to do this or not. If he doesn't reply, and if we are not doing this, then I see you again here tomorrow for more work on Notestrator. And in case we are writing the ReaScripts tomorrow over at IDDQD, then in that case, I will be back on Wednesday for more work on Notestrator. In any case, it has been fun to have you over. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting me on Patreon, on PayPal. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, just for being here. You are all awesome. And I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something with me. And I see you on the next one. Bye. Okay, I have a PS. Don't usually do this, but I have a PS. I stopped streaming and I looked at my inbox and there was an email from Arya. So yes, we are on. Tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. I will be over at IDDQD Sound's channel to write some Reaper scripts in Lua. And I will be back to work on Notestrator on Wednesday. I see you tomorrow over at IDDQD to write some Reaper stuff. I see you there. Bye.